Hello, Mr. Ayotunde. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Hope things are good in the UK right now.
Well, it depends what you call good, but we're okay and trying to keep things under control as much as possible.
Great, great. So, right, let's get started. We want to know more about your journey. So, how do you go about becoming a coach?
Well, it's a long and winded journey for me because started out with my ambition to be a player, which is how it started. But then again, I had to mix being a player with being a student in school. So I decided, with my parents forcing me to go into school rather than to football. And then while I was at school, I developed a knack for writing. So I did a bit of writing about football. I went into football journalism eventually. I worked with the BBC, I worked with ESPN in America, I worked with SuperSport in South Africa. That was my journey into football before I went into publishing my own magazine called New African Soccer. While I was doing all of that, I was also learning the rudiments of the game, the technicalities of the game, trying to understand what I was writing about. That was the whole idea. Was for me to know, to have inside technical knowledge of the subject that I'm writing about and that I'm reporting on. And so it happened that every now and again I got the odd assignment by football federations around the world, around Africa in particular, to actually analyze games for them technically and do a bit of scouting for them. And that's how I ended up being a football coach and a scout.
Interesting. It's been a long journey. So, why don't you tell us some of the unique qualities you look for while scouting for players?
Well, I mean, we have the four cardinal principles of scouting and talent identification in players. Number one, of course, is the physical attributes. They've got to have the physical ability. They've got to have the talent and the mental awareness. You know, and they've got to have the natural talent as well. And then the psychosocial, the ability to cope mentally and psychologically with the game. So it all comes together. When you're looking for a very good defender, he has to have the physical attributes, which is the height, the build, to be able to jump, to be able to head the ball very well. But he also has to have the tactical skill to be able to maneuver when he's stuck in situations. Then he has to have the mental ability to cope with the pressure of attackers coming to him all the time. He needs to have that. And he has to also have the social ability to interact very well and become a team player. So it's all encompassing, depending on what part of the pitch you want to actually scout for. If you're scouting for a striker, it's a little bit different from if you're scouting for a midfielder or for a goalkeeper. But the whole thing is about the physical attributes, the height, the build, and the physical ability based on the part of the field he wants to be playing, mixed with his natural talent, mixed with his mental awareness, and then his ability to be a part of a team.
Sure. So when we talk about ability to be a part of the team, you know, there are different players with different personalities, right? Some are very serious, some are, you know, fooling around many times. So how do you coach different players and how do you make them into a team?
The best thing and the most important thing, of course, is for the coach to be able to identify the strengths and weaknesses of each player. You know, every player, like you said, have their own peculiar attributes. So the attribute of a player who is always fooling around, but is good at what he does, we approach him with a completely different mentality. We tell him to switch on for 90 minutes. We need your total concentration on this game. Enjoy yourself, give him the freedom to enjoy himself, but also to have the interest of the team at heart. The one who is serious, We tell him to be serious, but we also want him to enjoy himself. So there's got to be a balance. You can't be too serious, but you can't also be too playful. And then it is the coach that will know the differences between his peculiar players and know how he deals with them. I learned the trade under Jose Mourinho, who is a world-class manager when he was at Chelsea. And the thing that he did so well is that there are players during the warm-up to the game, he leaves them to do their thing because he knows that they know what they're supposed to do. Right. And there are some that he always has to go and talk to just before the game. He holds them at the shoulder and gives them the words of encouragement that they need so that they can do what he wants. So it's all very different. Every player is different. If you have a team of 30 players, you treat each of those 30 players in 30 different ways.
Right, right. That's very well said. So do you feel the top players, I mean, you worked with the Nigerian team, do you feel the top players have some unique traits that, differentiate them from the rest of the players?
No, I think, we've seen a lot of incidences where top players, I'll give you another little example. John Terry, who was the captain of Chelsea Football Club for many years, had a brother. And I'm sure a lot of people don't know that he has a brother. Mm-hmm. He had a brother, Paul, who also played football. Both of them were playing at about the same time. Mm-hmm. And John, who became a superstar, will always tell you that my brother was much better than me. Oh. But somehow, because the coaches identified the quality in John more than the coach that identified the quality in Paul, John became a better player, became a more pronounced, more well-known, better-known, more popular player than his brother. Right. So sometimes the natural attributes are there, the traits are there, and you gain your confidence from where it starts from. When you start very young and people identify you as a player that is really good from a very young age, then you go on to better things because the self-confidence comes in there. And you now know that you can take on anybody, you can play amongst the best players in the world. Whereas a top player who has the top talent, but not the opportunity to go and train in the midst of the best players in the world may not get to that level.
Sure. Right, interesting. That's an interesting insight. So you say that, so the role of luck is very big in a football player's career.
You would not discount it. Luck is something that a lot of people don't like to allude to, but you cannot discount it because I've known players who, again, two brothers were in the same academy, and when the scouts came to pick one player, the brother happened to be writing an exam and wasn't able to be there on the day that the scouts came. Mm-hmm. And that was the one opportunity that he would have had to make a stab at it and making a great player, and he was not there at the time, and it was not his fault. Right. Sometimes you have players who were injured when the scouts came. He had a little injury, so he was sitting in the stands. The scout comes, picks your rival, takes him to a bigger club, and you who were much better but had an injury at the time could not make it. It happens a lot.
Right. And all right, so let's now talk about Nigerian football. Talk to us about the rise of Nigerian football.
Well, I mean, we say rise, I would say the state of Nigerian football. I won't call it the rise because Nigerian football has been rising for quite some time, and it has had its falls as well, as does many countries. Nigerian football is, it came in leaps and bounds. 1985, they won the Under-17 World Cup. Went on to play a fantastic World Cup in 1994, won the gold medal in the Olympics in 1996, and then they took a dip, as some countries do, and then didn't do so well for some years. But right now, I think we're getting back to a point where we're becoming a force to reckon with. If you look at the pedigree of the players that we have across the world, we have the Alexi Wobis, we have the Sam Chukwuezes, a player who would most likely be the most expensive African player ever is Victor Osimhen, who will be crossing over to Napoli in the next day or two. Mm-hmm. You know, now with the growth and the youth that we have in the team, we can now talk about the rebirth of Nigerian football. And I think that it started a few years ago when Coach Gernot Rohr took over as the coach, and I'm his assistant. And we started in 2016. By last year, we got to the semi-finals of the African Cup that Nigeria did not qualify for the two previous editions. We qualified and got to the semi-finals and won the bronze medal. Now, every expectation is that we're going to go for the big one next time we play in the African Cup, and we're going to do a good World Cup as well in 2022. So the rise has been good, and the promise is good as well.
Definitely. So, what is unique about the team you feel that you are working with right now?
Harmony, solidarity, youthfulness, and a collective desire to be successful. That is the unique thing about us. There's no division. Like I said to you before, I worked as a journalist for over 20 years before I came into coaching. And I went in as an outsider reporting on football in Africa, Nigeria, Cameroon, Senegal, you know, Ghana, the big nations in African football that I reported on at the time. And the one thing that we found there was that there was always division in the teams. Right. You know, when you go in, you see a group with the so-called senior players sitting in one corner, a group of younger players sitting in another corner, a group of foreign-based players sitting in one corner and home-based players sitting in another. And you notice it even when you go to the training sessions of these teams that there is division. What Nigerian players don't have at the moment, since we started in 2016, and it's been getting better and better and better, is that everybody sees themselves as the same. Once they go in there into the camp, there is unity, there is harmony, there's brotherliness, and everybody is just the same. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Arsenal, Everton, Leicester City, or you're playing in Enyimba Football Club in Nigeria, they all mark together, they're all one and the same. And that is very, very pivotal. That's very important in team building.
Sure, right. I mean, it's very interesting because usually you'd, as an outsider, you'd think that, you know, the players who are playing for an Arsenal or a Liverpool, when they go back to the African teams like Nigeria or Ghana, they'd have that, you know, type of ego that they play at the one of the best leagues in the world, and their teammates aren't that good or something. But that's very amazing that you've been able to build that harmony.
Absolutely. And you see, the good thing is that because they're all very young and they grew up almost about the same time, so much so that, you know, sometimes when we select a new player to come into the team and he's only 21 years old and it's his first time in the team, and you're trying to see whether you're going to introduce him to the rest of the team, you just find that they've known each other when they were growing up. And, you know, it's just that he probably wasn't as lucky as the big ones.
Sure.
But they've known each other. If they didn't know each other, somebody who knew them knows them. And therefore, the camaraderie, the harmony, the friendliness is very natural. It just comes and it flows naturally.
Wonderful. So, yeah, they are making good strides. So what do you think needs to improve to make them perform better in the World Cup?
Well, a lot of things are needed. It's one thing, like I said to you, when we're talking about talent identification, I talked about 4 things. I talked about the physical, the mental, the tactical, and also the social. It's the same with the team. With our team, we now know that we've got a balance of good players, very good, talented players. The ability is there. We now need the administration to be good. so that the administration does everything that we need to do in order to get us to prepare very well. In 2014, when we went to Brazil for the World Cup, I remember that in 2013, Germany went to Brazil and took ownership of a huge expanse of land. They built their training camp for themselves with everything that they needed in that training camp. They didn't use anybody's resources. It was all German, and it became the German camp in Brazil. When they got there, everything, it was like they were at home in Germany. So the administration looked after them, gave them everything that they needed, gave them the facilities that they would be using in Munich or Frankfurt. They put it in Brazil. It was almost like if they moved a whole house, the house of football in Germany, and took it to Brazil. What did they do? They got to Brazil, they had perfect preparation, and they killed it. They won every game, and they won the World Cup. When they were leaving, they donated that site to the Brazilian Football Federation as their own legacy for winning the World Cup. If administrations can put things in place, and I'm not saying every administration can be like Brazil or like Germany. Nigeria probably doesn't have the resources of Germany, but in the little way that we can, if we put recommendations to the Football Federation of Nigeria and they say, yes, let's do it, and they can do it, then we will go very far. A lot of things happen in Africa, and I'm sure in Asia as well. The talent is there, the ability is there, everything is there. But then when you present your proposal to the administrators and say, okay, we need a training camp for 2 weeks, we need this, we need to go to Qatar first before we go to Dubai or whatever. And then they start to say, oh no, you don't need this one. I don't think you need that one. But they still put us out to go out there and play the game. When we do go and play the game without the preparation that we actually requested for, and we lose matches, everybody says the coaching is bad. Now that needs to change. That needs to change. If any country is going to do well and win the World Cup or do well in the World Cup, let the administration and the organization match the talent and the physicality that the team has got.
Sure, definitely. I mean, we experienced this in Asia, in our country as well, and there's so much red tape, and we don't get the support from the government, from the administrators. So that's what's holding some of us back. And definitely, that's very well said. So yes, there are problems with the administrators, but apart from that, what advice can you give the upcoming Nigerian footballers?
Well, I mean, it's a very interesting country, Nigeria, and sometimes I don't like to talk too much about it because it's a very complex situation. Anytime we have a match or a competition, we can only take 23 players. Now, Nigeria is a country that is abundant with talent. We have hundreds of players playing in Europe. Then we have hundreds of players who are still playing in Nigeria. Everybody of those players believe that they deserve to have a shirt to go in there and play for Nigeria. But we can only select 22, and we can only start with 11, which becomes a complex problem. It's a great problem to have because it means the talent is there. And the only thing that we always tell them, because that's one of my jobs, because I'm the chief scout, I'm the one in charge of scouting, I get a lot of requests from players, their families, their agents, they're always sending me messages. And the only thing that I say to them is, I've got you. I watch all your games because that's my job. And you keep working hard. You keep working hard, because if you keep working hard, you would not be missed. If people will see you and people will be interested in you. And if they're interested in you, if you're signed by a big club like AC Milan and Napoli or Chelsea or Liverpool, it'd be impossible for us to ignore you. So work hard on your attributes and think less of your entitlement to national team football. Just work on yourself, because that national team football will come, not because you press for it, but because you have worked for it.
Sure. Sure. That's a great piece of advice, and thank you for that. So, Mr. Ayotunde, why don't you now talk to us about Tunde Talks? What is it exactly, and what you're planning to do with it?
Well, I mean, Tunde Talks is my brainchild, a brainchild that has emanated from me. Like I said at the beginning, where I started from. Where I started from was I wanted to be a football player. I couldn't be a football player for all sorts of reasons.
Right.
I went into school. I studied, but I kept my dream alive. If I can't be a football player, I want to be involved in football for as long as it's possible to the highest possible level. And that's exactly what I did. And now, I now did it. I crossed over the barriers of football journalism, football marketing, football campaign and politicking, because I worked as an international relations campaign coordinator for the English Football Association as well for many years. And then I went from there into coaching. The only thing I didn't do was refereeing, unfortunately, which is very controversial anyway.
Right.
But I did all of that. And I now found myself at a point where I'm thinking that 25 to 30 years in the football world, the only legacy that I can pass on to people is to share my experiences, my life, the way it has gone, how it has been, and share it with people, even if they're not involved in football. Because what I found is that football can relate with any sector of life.
Sure.
You know, when you talk about, when you go to the board meeting and you have a sales target or you have a marketing target and you're not involved in football, think about it, that when a team is set up to attack, you're going all out to attack. You're attacking goal because you want to score goals. That's exactly what a salesman does. You go into attack.
Right.
You go and attack the people that you want to sell to.
Right.
And when you retreat and go into the defensive and you sit too deep, it means you are inviting pressure on yourself. And even that happens in the corporate world. If you sit back, you are inviting pressure, just like in the football field. So every facet in life can be related to the football field. And my job, my task, and my commitment is to share this with people, which is why my motto of Tunde Talks is life's journey from a football lens. From a football perspective, I have people here, anytime they have any small problem in school, in university, in their work, I always find a football example for them to show them that football can be related with other things in life. And that's my vision, that's my desire to share with the outside world what I do, what I have done over the years, and make it work for them in the future.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I hope you achieve this amazing vision of yours. So where can people find out about this project of yours? How can they get in touch with you?
Right, I've got a website. My website is called www.tundeadelakun.com.
Right.
tundeadelakun.com is the website. I have a YouTube channel which you can subscribe to. I release periodically a video, probably on average once every week, where I talk about pretty much everything that's going on around us in the world. My YouTube channel is simply Tunde Talks, which you can subscribe to, which will be a good delight if you subscribe to it. You can hear me all the time when I'm talking. I have Twitter, which is at Tunde_talks. I have Instagram at Tunde.talks. So Tunde Talks is a brand, and tundeadelakun.com or my YouTube channel, Tunde Talks, is the best one through which I can be reached. If you go on my website, under the comments page, under the contact us page, you can contact me on my website, or on the YouTube channel, you can drop a comment and I can come back to you, because I want to share this story. I want to share my life, not just with Nigeria, not just with Africa, but across the whole world. And when all this coronavirus thing is over, I intend to travel and do tours of various parts of the world and share my life and share my experiences with people as we go along.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, listeners, I will have all the links on the show notes. So please do follow all of Mr. Ayotunde's channels, and I'm sure it'll be of great value to you. And Mr. Ayotunde, thank you so much. I know you've been really busy, and thank you so much for giving us this half an hour to talk with you.
No problem at all. Thank you.